The forward convoy base buzzed with controlled routine until Captain Rodriguez's suspicion reached its breaking point. "Run another background check, Supply Sergeant Thompson," he commanded, doubt clear in his voice. The unremarkable woman in standard fatigues stood quietly near the supply vehicles when the enemy ambush performed one action that changed everything. The effect was immediate. The convoy commander's radio clattered to the ground. Senior officers froze at their command positions, and faces drained of color throughout the motor pool. No one had expected the supply driver to lead them out of certain death. No one had expected the quiet woman hauling routine cargo to navigate through enemy fire with tactical precision. No one had expected the truth. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story captivated you, please consider subscribing. We share powerful stories of unsung heroes every week. The classified convoy staging area hummed with the constant buzz of diesel engines and muted radio chatter. Banks of monitors cast amber light across focused faces, illuminating tactical displays dotted with red threat markers and yellow route warnings. The air carried the scent of fuel and dust, mixed with the tension that came with running supply missions through hostile territory. It was 0600 hours on what had begun as a standard morning convoy at Forward Operating Base Charlie 3, positioned 20 miles from enemy strongholds. Supply driver 3rd Class Maria Santos sat in her assigned vehicle inspection area, deliberately unremarkable in her standard combat fatigues and regulation driving equipment. Her brown hair was pulled back in a practical bun under her helmet. No visible identification except for a basic transportation badge. Early 30s, with an observant face that spoke of mechanical knowledge rather than tactical authority. Her hazel eyes moved constantly between equipment checklists and convoy vehicles, while her presence demanded nothing from the intensity around her. To a casual observer, she might have been any enlisted driver, a recent assignment from base transportation perhaps, or another face in the endless rotation of supply personnel. She occasionally made notes on a standard clipboard, her handwriting neat and precise. Unlike the convoy commanders and senior staff who filled the area with their tactical briefings and operational credentials, she wore no visible markers of advanced training or specialized clearance. Just a driver, it seemed, with basic access and an assignment to haul routine supply cargo. The convoy mission underway involved classified transport of advanced equipment for forward combat operations. The mission had proceeded through standard phases: route planning, security briefing, and now vehicle preparation before final departure approval. Convoy Operations Officer Williams, a veteran logistics specialist with something to prove, managed the departure protocols with practiced efficiency, moving between vehicles and checking status reports throughout the motor pool. The supply routes had established security parameters that required careful coordination, Williams explained to the convoy commander, his voice carrying across the staging area. The decision to proceed with the planned route created complications for standard transportation procedures. Captain Rodriguez sat rigid at the convoy control station, his face a careful mask. A distinguished convoy commander with 18 years of combat logistics experience, he looked somehow troubled in his uniform, as if the weight of the classified mission had physically aged him in recent months. Maria watched it all, her expression revealing nothing. Only the occasional glance toward the main convoy vehicles suggested any emotional response to the ongoing procedures. When the convoy commander called for a departure update, heads turned in mild surprise as Maria raised her hand slightly from her position at the vehicle inspection station. Driver Santos has been conducting final equipment checks, Convoy Operations Officer Williams announced. She may have additional assessment of vehicle readiness. She moved toward the main staging area with a deliberate precision that seemed at odds with her driver role. Something about her bearing, spine straight, steps measured, attention focused, caught the notice of a weathered staff sergeant seated near the main display. He frowned slightly, studying her with newfound interest. Captain Rodriguez, sharp-eyed and methodical, watched her with narrowed attention as she prepared her vehicle assessment. The captain was known for his no-nonsense approach to convoy security and transportation protocols. Today, he wore his authority like a burden, his uniform crisp despite the early hour. "Please state your inspection findings for the record," instructed Captain Rodriguez. Supply driver 3rd Class Maria Santos, vehicle operations specialist, she replied. Her voice was soft but clear, her professional bearing perfect. Convoy Operations Officer Williams began his questioning, and Maria's responses were factual and precise, but delivered in such a measured, quiet tone that Captain Rodriguez soon grew visibly impatient. Several times, the mission recorder had to ask her to repeat her statements. Driver Santos, Captain Rodriguez finally interrupted. The entire convoy staff needs to hear your vehicle assessment clearly. Please speak up. Yes, Captain, Maria responded, barely raising her volume. Convoy Operations Officer Williams continued. Driver Santos, can you explain your assessment of the supply vehicle's operational status? I've been conducting standard maintenance procedures and monitoring vehicle performance according to established transportation protocols, she replied, her voice still frustratingly soft. I've identified several factors that affect operational certification based on current mission parameters. And what were your findings during inspection procedures? I determined that the convoy vehicles respond normally to standard operational testing. I also noted significant route patterns that indicate potential security considerations. Did you document these observations? Yes, I logged all vehicle responses and attempted route analysis through available tactical specifications. Was this analysis reviewed by convoy management? It was not forwarded beyond my immediate transportation supervisor. The convoy security officer, Major Patricia Hayes, approached for additional questioning with a skeptical demeanor. Tall and imposing with steel-gray hair that lent her an air of authority, she moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to challenging questionable vehicle assessments. Driver Santos, what specific tactical training qualifies you to analyze convoy route security? I completed basic route planning during my transportation certification program. And what level of security clearance? Her tone suggested the answer would confirm Santos's limitations. I maintain appropriate clearance levels for supply driver work, Maria responded evenly. Major Hayes smiled thinly. Driver Santos, how could you possibly understand the complexities of enemy ambush tactics and convoy security when you've been driving supplies for only 10 weeks? Something flickered across Captain Rodriguez's face. A brief shadow of recognition quickly suppressed. He studied Maria more intently now. Objection to characterization, Convoy Operations Officer Williams called out. Driver Santos's vehicle assessments should be evaluated on merit. Sustained, Captain Rodriguez replied, his eyes never leaving Maria. Major Hayes adjusted her approach. Let me rephrase. What specific experience do you have with hostile convoy operations in combat environments? Maria paused before answering, her eyes briefly meeting those of the weathered staff sergeant near the main display. My background includes some practical application of tactical driving analysis, she said carefully. Could you be more specific? That information involves previous assignments that may not be relevant to current transportation requirements. Major Hayes looked to the convoy commander. Captain, if the driver lacks relevant experience with hostile operations, her vehicle assessments should be considered accordingly. I'll allow the line of questioning, Captain Rodriguez ruled. Driver Santos, please provide more detail about your relevant experience. Maria's expression remained neutral. My previous transportation experience involves classified convoy operations. How convenient, Major Hayes remarked dryly. So we're expected to trust your tactical assessments without knowing your actual qualifications to evaluate convoy security? I'm reporting on vehicle observations I made using established inspection protocols. As the questioning continued, Maria responded with increasingly precise details about convoy tactics, route security, and enemy ambush patterns that made several transportation officers in the area exchange glances. She referenced specific vehicle configurations, defensive formations, and evasive maneuvers that seemed beyond the knowledge base of a standard supply driver. When shown tactical route diagrams, her eyes lingered on them a moment longer than necessary, her composure wavering almost imperceptibly before returning to professional detachment. Do you recognize these route specifications, Driver Santos? Major Hayes asked. Yes, they represent the convoy routes I've been preparing vehicles for operational certification. And your analysis of these specifications proved to be, what exactly? The vehicle observations you made about route security, how does that affect current mission readiness? Maria's voice remained steady. The route analysis I conducted indicated convoy protocols that weren't reflected in current security evaluations. My observations about vehicle standards were documented in my inspection reports. In the staging area, the older staff sergeant with graying hair and multiple deployment ribbons watched Maria with growing intensity, his brow furrowed in concentration as if trying to place a half-remembered voice from tactical briefings. The morning hours passed as Convoy Operations Officer Williams returned for follow-up questions, asking Maria about specific vehicle requirements for the current mission. Can you explain the standard protocols for certifying a hostile territory convoy operation of this nature? Williams asked. The convoy staff would have established primary and secondary route procedures with security oversight, she explained, her voice still frustratingly soft. Standard protocol requires verified vehicle testing and clearance confirmation at predetermined security levels. And if those procedures were insufficient or compromised, the backup route would proceed using alternative assessment methods after primary certification was evaluated, utilizing specialized tactical protocols on confirmed hostile territory, she explained with a level of operational precision that raised eyebrows among the transportation staff present. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward, his patience visibly wearing thin. Driver Santos, I've asked you repeatedly to speak up. This convoy operation cannot properly evaluate vehicle assessments it cannot hear clearly. I apologize, Captain, Maria replied, her volume barely increasing. The older staff sergeant in the area now sat forward at his monitoring station, his eyes never leaving Maria's face. Recognition seemed to be dawning slowly, his expression shifting from curiosity to something closer to alarm. Major Hayes seized on the captain's frustration. Perhaps Driver Santos's reluctance to speak clearly reflects her limited confidence in her own vehicle assessments. Convoy Operations Officer Williams stood immediately. Ma'am, that's inappropriate speculation. Noted, Williams, Captain Rodriguez replied sharply. Major Hayes, confine your remarks to relevant questions for the driver. Major Hayes nodded in acknowledgement. Driver Santos, in your assessment as a transportation professional, was there anything about the convoy vehicles that indicated modified security requirements? Maria looked directly at the main tactical display for the first time. The vehicle assessment suggested security modifications beyond current protocol estimates. That wasn't my question. Based on what you observed, should security procedures have been modified? Based on the route patterns I identified, yes. But my assessment was not included in mission planning. Major Hayes's expression hardened. Are you suggesting that vehicle information was deliberately ignored by convoy management? I'm stating that the route analysis I provided differed significantly from the security assessment that was distributed to transportation personnel. The staging area stirred with murmurs. Captain Rodriguez tapped his pen once against his desk, restoring order. Driver Santos, Captain Rodriguez said, his voice tight, with growing impatience. You'll need to explain that assertion clearly and audibly for the convoy staff. What specifically was different about your analysis? Maria paused, her eyes scanning the staging area briefly before returning to the captain. When she spoke, her voice remained soft, forcing everyone to lean forward to hear. My route analysis indicated that the convoy protocols included tactical features using formations normally reserved for special operations missions. That information was not included in the security briefing provided to transportation personnel. Captain Rodriguez's head snapped up, his carefully maintained composure cracking for the first time. The weathered staff sergeant's expression darkened as he studied Maria with new intensity. Driver Santos, Captain Rodriguez said firmly, frustration evident in his tone. This is the final time I will ask you to speak louder. The entire convoy staff must be able to hear vehicle assessments accurately. Maria looked directly at Captain Rodriguez. A look of quiet recognition passed between them, though the captain quickly masked it with professional detachment. The veteran staff sergeant in the area was now gripping his monitoring station, his knuckles white. Captain Rodriguez finally interrupted with visible impatience, leaning forward at his convoy console. Driver Santos, we don't have all morning. Speak clearly or we'll proceed with mission departure without additional vehicle input. The staging area fell silent. For the first time since beginning her assessment, Maria looked directly at Captain Rodriguez. A look of quiet recognition passed between them, though the captain quickly masked it. The weathered staff sergeant near the tactical display leaned forward, his hands gripping his monitoring station. Suddenly, The convoy's emergency alert system activated, and sirens began blaring throughout the staging area. Over the loudspeakers, an urgent voice announced, "Ambush alert. Enemy contact confirmed on primary route. All vehicles prepare for immediate tactical departure." Every convoy vehicle's engine roared to life simultaneously, and all personnel rushed to their positions as they realized the mission had just transformed from routine supply run to combat operation. The effect was immediate and electric. Captain Rodriguez's pen fell from his fingers, clattering loudly on his desk. Several transportation staff physically straightened at their stations as if witnessing something impossible. Major Hayes's face drained of color. The weathered staff sergeant near the tactical display stood up involuntarily, then slowly sat back down. Without hesitation, Maria sprinted to her supply truck and took the driver's position. As enemy fire erupted around the convoy and vehicles began taking hits, she made a sharp tactical turn that cut directly through the ambush zone. Instead of following the planned escape route, she charged straight into enemy positions with her supply truck, creating a breakthrough that allowed the entire convoy to follow her lead to safety. Complete silence fell over the staging area as recognition dawned across various faces. Some looked confused, others shocked, and a few, those who understood the significance of what they had just witnessed, appeared stricken. Maria continued in her normal soft voice over the radio, but now everyone was straining to hear. "That tactical maneuver accessed an escape protocol I developed for Operation Steel Thunder 4 years ago. I was also the convoy tactics specialist attached to Operation Iron Shield, which Captain Rodriguez personally commanded 3 years before today's mission began." She methodically produced a worn, waterproof tactical case from her cargo pocket and held it up for the convoy staff to see over her radio transmission. "This contains classified development records from Operation Iron Shield, not the sanitized reports filed with Transportation Command. These convoy routes aren't just supply missions. They're based on tactics I designed before my operation was terminated and my clearance was officially revoked." Captain Rodriguez attempted to call for order over the radio, but found his voice failing him. "Driver Santos, this is highly irregular procedure for mission assessment. My tactical team and I were declared casualties of a security breach during Operation Iron Shield." Maria continued calmly over the radio as the convoy reached safety. "I was the only survivor. I've spent 3 years working under assumed identity and waiting for another operation to utilize the same routes, not for personal reasons, but to prevent other personnel from being endangered by compromised tactical protocols." A younger transportation technician near the communications terminals looked up in confusion. "This is impossible. Lead tactician Santos died in a classified security incident. I processed personnel casualty reports myself." The weathered staff sergeant turned to address him. "Stay at your station, Corporal," he said quietly. "Look at what just happened out there. Dead personnel don't lead convoys through ambushes." Maria opened her tactical case over the radio transmission to reveal development blueprints, security clearances, and classified documentation. "My team was eliminated because we discovered General Lee Sit-chun was facilitating intelligence leaks to enemy forces through a network of compromised transportation contractors, the same network that provided the false route specifications leading to my team's destruction." The staging area erupted into controlled chaos. Captain Rodriguez tapped his pen repeatedly on his desk, finally restoring some semblance of order. His face had lost all color, and his hand trembled visibly. "This convoy operation will pause current activities for 30 minutes, he declared, his voice unsteady. But before anyone could move, Maria spoke again over the radio. "With respect, Captain, this convoy route contains the same security vulnerabilities that destroyed my team. I've waited 3 years to speak. But current missions are proceeding with compromised tactics that could endanger national security." Captain Rodriguez slowly leaned back in his chair, his authority visibly shaken. He nodded once, a gesture of reluctant permission. Operation Iron Shield was classified above top secret. Maria continued over the radio. "Our mission was to develop convoy tactics that could operate without risk of enemy ambush. We created route protocols and evasive measures that represented the most advanced convoy operations available. What we discovered was that General Chun was providing our tactical specifications to enemy forces through a sophisticated espionage operation with route records linking directly to hostile commanders. She turned her tactical case and removed an encrypted data chip. This contains route blueprints, tactical algorithms, and convoy protocols. We transmitted this evidence before we were compromised. That transmission was intercepted and our forward base was destroyed. Our team was left to die. Major Hayes stood, her voice hollow. I received direct confirmation from General Chun that Iron Shield team had been confirmed Kia. The operation was terminated due to security breach circumstances. We weren't dead, Maria said simply over the radio. We were very much alive and calling for immediate evacuation. I heard your voice on the command frequency, Major Hayes. You sounded confused, but you relayed the termination order. Convoy Operations Officer Williams approached the communications station cautiously. Lead Tactician Santos, if what you're saying is true, how did you survive? And why assume a false identity for 3 years? Maria's composure never wavered as the convoy maintained secure position. I survived because I was separated from my team during the final assault on our base. I was wounded, unconscious, presumed dead along with the others. Transportation contractors found me and kept me hidden while I recovered. By the time I was functional again, the official story was established. My team was dead, the operation had been compromised, and General Chun had been promoted to advanced logistics oversight. She looked around at the convoy vehicles through her mirrors, meeting the eyes of several senior staff members over the radio. I needed time to gather evidence that couldn't be easily buried again. I needed to understand who knew about the intelligence leaks and who was simply following compromised orders. Most importantly, I needed to make sure no other personnel would die because of the same security failures that destroyed my team. The weathered staff sergeant approached the central communications area. Captain, request permission to address the convoy staff. I am Staff Sergeant Robert Mitchell, retired Special Operations. I was the tactical liaison for the Iron Shield operation. He turned to face the radio. Lead Tactician Santos was one of the finest convoy specialists I ever worked with. If she says her team was betrayed, I believe her without question. Major Hayes interjected. This is all highly dramatic, but it has no direct bearing on current convoy operations. Supply missions proceed according to established security protocols, not some conspiracy from years ago. They're connected, Maria replied over the radio as the convoy remained in defensive position. The tactics being used here include the same security vulnerabilities from Iron Shield that enemy forces exploited. Current missions are proceeding with compromised specifications. History repeating itself. Different operation, same betrayal, same source. She pulled another document from her tactical case and transmitted the details. This is a tactical summary showing that my team reported security vulnerabilities directly to General Chun 6 times before our base was destroyed. We were told explicitly that questioning tactical protocols would compromise critical transportation programs. We weren't being paranoid. We were trying to protect national security. Captain Rodriguez studied the transmitted document, his convoy leadership demeanor cracking further. These security reports weren't included in the tactical briefing I received for today's mission evaluation. Because they were deliberately removed, Maria said over the radio. Just like current security assessments are being modified to hide ongoing intelligence leaks. And just like the evidence was removed from Operation Iron Shield after my team was eliminated, the staging area had grown absolutely still with the convoy maintaining radio silence. Every person present was aware they were witnessing something extraordinary. Even the transportation technicians had stopped their routine monitoring, listening to Maria's radio transmission with undisguised astonishment. Convoy Operations Officer Williams approached the communications console. Captain, in light of this new intelligence, I recommend immediate review of convoy route security and potentially suspending current missions pending security assessment. Captain Rodriguez nodded absently, his attention still fixed on the radio transmission as the area remained operationally suspended. Granted, all convoy operations will implement enhanced security protocols immediately. He paused, then added, Lead Tactician Santos will remain under protective custody until these matters are resolved. As staff began coordinating the operational changes, Maria spoke again over the radio. There's something else you should know, Captain. She removed a final document from her tactical case. This is the original authorization for Operation Iron Shield with your signature from when you served as tactical commander. And this, she produced another paper, is the termination order that condemned my team. The authorizing signatures don't match. Captain Rodriguez took both documents with trembling hands. Someone forged my signature on the termination order, he whispered, shock evident in his voice. Yes, Maria confirmed over the radio. You've been carrying responsibility for a decision you never made. The termination order came directly from General Chen's office. The retired Staff Sergeant Mitchell moved closer. I always questioned why you would terminate that tactical research, Rodriguez. It didn't align with anything I knew about your operational integrity. Captain Rodriguez looked up, visible emotion crossing his face. I've spent 3 years believing I made a call that ended crucial tactical development and contributed to my team's death. I authorized the operational liaison, but I never authorized abandoning them to die. The area communications crackled, and a team of military investigators appeared at the secured entrance, led by a stern-faced senior agent. What is the meaning of this operational suspension and emergency convoy status? The agent demanded through the intercom. Captain Rodriguez, I'm Agent Marcus Webb from the Military Criminal Investigative Service. We received an anonymous intelligence package yesterday containing evidence of serious breaches of national security involving General Chun and intelligence leaks. I understand there may be connected evidence being reported in this convoy operation. Maria smiled faintly over the radio as the operations remained suspended. Right on schedule, she murmured. Agent Webb's voice came through the intercom. You would be lead tactician Santos, formerly of Iron Shield. I would be. We have extensive questions for you, tactician, starting with how you survived and why you assumed false identity. And I have answers, Agent Webb. 3 years' worth. The agent's voice continued through the area communications. Captain Rodriguez, with your permission, I'd like to take custody of the evidence lead tactician Santos has provided and arrange for her protection pending a full investigation. Captain Rodriguez nodded toward the intercom. Granted, but I want to be kept fully informed of any evidence relating to current convoy security and potential tactical compromise. Of course, Captain, it appears several ongoing operations have been compromised by the same source. The staging area began to clear of non-essential personnel as security protocols allowed, but Major Hayes remained at her monitoring station, looking shell-shocked. Maria approached over the radio quietly while the area remained in partial suspension. I don't understand, Hayes said, looking up at the radio. Why would you risk exposure? I'm the one who relayed the termination order that left your team to die. Because you were another victim of the same security compromise, Maria replied simply over the radio. You followed what you believed were legitimate orders from a trusted superior. The guilt should rest with those who manipulated you, not those who were deceived. How can you be so certain I wasn't involved? Maria allowed herself the smallest of smiles, glancing at the tactical displays still showing her successful convoy breakthrough. Because I've spent 3 years studying every detail of what happened. I know who facilitated the intelligence leaks and why. I know who altered security reports and who profited from the tactical sales. Most importantly, I know you requested confirmation twice because you suspected something was wrong with the termination order. Major Hayes' eyes widened. How could you possibly know that? Those communications were classified. I had help, Maria admitted over the radio. Not everyone in military logistics was compromised. There are still good people within the system who wanted the truth to come out, and who wanted to prevent other personnel from dying because of security failures. As she prepared to return to base with Agent Webb's escort, the retired Staff Sergeant Mitchell approached the communications station as security protocols began to normalize. Lead tactician, he said formally, then dropped his voice. Maria, we held a memorial service for the Iron Shield team. I spoke about your dedication to protecting national security. I know, she replied quietly over the radio. I read the transcript online. Thank you for honoring their sacrifice. What happens to this convoy operation now? Maria looked at the tactical displays showing current convoy positions still secure. Now it proceeds with honest security assessment and proper vulnerability testing. National security can be protected because someone finally told the truth about intelligence leaks. The staging area remains suspended in a moment of shocked revelation as convoy operations gradually return to normal. Captain Rodriguez slowly stood from his tactical console and removed his convoy credentials, setting them on his desk before stepping down to stand on the same level as the radio station. This convoy operation recognizes lead tactician Maria Santos, presumed killed in action, recipient of the Bronze Star for tactical excellence. He announced formally, his voice carrying a weight of regret and respect. The retired Staff Sergeant Mitchell approached the radio and rendered a respectful acknowledgement. Others throughout the staging area followed suit, a ripple of silent recognition spreading through the room. Transportation personnel who had moments ago regarded her transmission with skepticism now stood in acknowledgement, honoring a fellow tactician whose integrity had cost her everything. Major Hayes, visibly shaken, stood to address the radio directly. I never knew who actually gave that termination order. I've been carrying this responsibility for 3 years, believing I contributed to ending important tactical work. I know, Maria replied over the radio. Your voice on the command frequency that day. I heard your confusion. You questioned the order. Twice, Hayes confirmed, her voice breaking slightly. They told me I was risking national security by questioning administrative decisions, that the security concerns had been addressed through other channels. Captain Rodriguez's professional demeanor cracked as he turned to face the convoy staff. I authorized Operation Iron Shield Liaison based on convoy tactical research that indicated critical national defense applications. I did not authorize the termination order that ended the operation. The signature was forged. You've been living with responsibility that was never yours to bear, Maria confirmed over the radio. General Chun used your tactical authority to cover her own intelligence leak activities. Agent Webb's team finally gained entry as security protocols normalized. Captain Rodriguez, I'd like to request a formal suspension of current convoy operations while we secure this evidence and establish proper protocols for what happens next. This has implications for multiple ongoing operations and potentially dozens of personnel. Captain Rodriguez nodded. Current operations will continue with enhanced security protocols, but all convoy missions will be immediately reviewed for potential compromise. He paused. Major Hayes, in light of the evidence presented, you are relieved of any responsibility for the Iron Shield incident pending complete review of the circumstances. As military investigators began securing the staging area and escorting people to debriefing areas, Maria opened her tactical case and carefully displayed photographs showing General Chun meeting with known enemy intelligence contacts and military contractors. This was never about recognition, she said softly over the radio, addressing the area at large. It was about preventing other personnel from dying because of security compromise, and about making sure military logistics serves American interests rather than enemy intelligence agencies. As she prepared to leave her vehicle, her shadow stretched long behind her across the convoy floor, the shadow of a tactical specialist standing at attention rather than a supply driver checking vehicles. For a moment, she paused to look back at the tactical displays showing current convoy operations. The convoy staff was coordinating with proper security information for the first time in years. Captain Rodriguez was directing missions with restored confidence in his tactical systems. Major Hayes was working to identify other potentially compromised operations. Staff Sergeant Mitchell watched her from near the tactical console, his face reflecting a complex mix of pride and determination. Maria gave him a small nod before continuing toward the staging area exit with Agent Webb's team. Her mission wasn't quite complete. There would be extensive debriefings, military investigations, and probably congressional oversight. The full scope of the intelligence leaks would need to be exposed, and those responsible held accountable at every level. But the most important part was accomplished. The truth was out, and personnel could once again trust that their tactical systems were working to protect national interests rather than serve enemy intelligence agencies. As she reached the staging area exit, a military escort approached. Lead Tactician Santos, Agent Webb has arranged secure transportation for your continued protection. If you'll come this way. She followed the escort toward the exit, conscious of the eyes following her progress. Convoy staff, technical personnel, transportation officers. For 3 years, she had lived invisibly, unremarkable and unnoticed, gathering evidence while pretending to be a routine driver. Now she walked openly, her clearance restored, her purpose fulfilled. The older veteran caught up with her just before she reached the exit corridor. Lead Tactician, he said quietly. What you did, surviving, maintaining your cover, gathering evidence, coming forward at the right moment, it was extraordinary. I had a duty to my team and to the personnel who came after us, she replied simply. It was more than duty, he insisted. It was courage of the highest order and tactical work of a quality that protected national interests. Maria allowed herself a small smile. You taught us well, Staff Sergeant Mitchell. I taught you procedures and protocols, he corrected. What you demonstrated today, that came from within. He watched her leave with the investigative team, then turned to Captain Rodriguez, who had joined them. Some heroes never get the recognition they deserve, he said quietly. They just carry the weight of protecting others. Captain Rodriguez nodded, watching Maria's figure disappear down the corridor. And some truths are worth waiting years to hear. The morning light continued to strengthen as Maria's escort vehicle pulled away from forward operating base Charlie 3. Behind her, the staging area buzzed with renewed purpose as convoy operations moved forward with proper security protocols and adequate vulnerability assessment procedures. The convoy staff worked with restored confidence, knowing their missions would proceed without enemy intelligence interference. Ahead lay the challenge of ensuring complete justice was served and that the full scope of the intelligence leak network was exposed and dismantled. But for now, in this moment between what was hidden and what would be revealed, the simple act of speaking truth had transformed a routine supply mission into something profound. The power of one tactician's quiet determination to honor fallen comrades and protect national security, even when it meant sacrificing years of her career to gather the evidence necessary to expose betrayal that powerful forces had tried to maintain forever. As her vehicle reached the main gate, Maria's radio crackled with an update from the staging area. All security protocols have been restored to maximum classification. Investigation proceeding with full military oversight. Maria closed her eyes and smiled for the first time in 3 years, knowing that this time, national security would be protected by honest tactics rather than compromised by enemy operations.